Hello, you're listening to Shoot the Hostage. My name's Sarah, and together with my partner Dan, we are a movie podcast where we talk about 8 different films per season based around a specific theme. Now, if you're hearing my voice, that means it's my choice of theme this season. But before we get stuck in, I do want to mention we get quite spoilery, so please bear that in mind. We don't want to ruin the film for you, so if you haven't seen it, maybe go away and then come back. If you like what you hear and you would like to help us out, there are a number of ways you can do that. The absolute easiest one is to just recommend us to a friend. If you want to go the extra mile, a 5-star review on Spotify would be hugely appreciated. A review on your podcast player of choice would also be hugely helpful. And if you really, really want to help us, we've got a Patreon, which is £3 a month, and you get access to a ton of extra content in the form of reviews of new cinema releases, new streaming releases. You get to see the lineup of the season ahead of time, and we do a wrap show at the end of every season. But all of that aside, I just want to say thank you for listening, and let's get stuck in. So we're almost in the home stretch of this season already.
6 of 8. This is number 6 of 8.
It is 6 of 8, which sounds like a Star Trek character.
It does, yeah. We're one number out.
Yeah. But this week, we're covering Catherine Hardwicke's 13.
Yes.
Are you going to make a joke about the fact that you haven't seen 12 yet?
I was just about to say, I'm going to find it hard to talk about this because I haven't seen the first 12.
I fucking knew it. I know you.
Yeah, thanks for pissing all over my joke there. It took me fucking ages to write that.
No, it didn't.
I was up all night with my quill last night.
With your quill?
Scribing, yeah.
Oh.
Throwing away, you know, when you scrunch it up and you throw away a bit of paper and then you start writing again.
Oh, is that why there's so many balled up bits of paper in your office?
Yep.
Oh.
My office.
Your office.
I know how you say it's my office and it's not like just a bunk bed with a sim racing rig underneath. My office.
It's an office. It depends what kind of work you're doing.
It's a teenager's bedroom. Yeah, so 13. Haven't seen the first 12. Don't know how we're going to talk about it. Thank you. What year did this movie come out?
2003.
You know what my next question is going to be, don't you?
What else came out in 2003 that we've covered?
Yes.
Anything?
I don't remember covering anything.
Oh, come on.
What?
We've covered other stuff from 2003.
That's my question to you.
Oh, no?
Correct.
Oh, good.
It was a trick question.
Oh, excellent.
This is, however, it's the 5th movie that we've spoken about that's directed by a woman.
Only the 5th?
Only the 5th.
Oh, we need to redress that balance.
We're looking at about 10% at the moment.
Wow. Okay.
Agreed, we do need to address that balance. It would be nice to get more female-directed movies in there. There's just way more movies directed by geezers. Undeniably.
By gazers.
By fellas, isn't there? But yeah, so this is the 5th film that we've spoken about that's been directed by a woman. Can you name the others?
The others wasn't directed by a woman.
We haven't covered it either.
Oh, Candyman.
Yeah, Near the Costa.
No. No is the answer. I can't name them.
They're all main feed shows. Do you want a clue?
Yeah.
Salty Bath Time.
Oh, Saltburn.
Saltburn. Emerald Fennel.
That's a trick. That's a trick because it was a bonus show.
I said they're all on the main feed.
Oof, naughty. Next clue.
Severin.
Oh, Near Dark.
Near Dark.
Holy shit. How did I forget Near Dark?
How did you forget that? Catherine Bigelow. Yeah.
Damn. Send me to the naughty corner.
And there's one more. It was also a bonus show.
It was also a bonus show. I don't know.
It was Madame Dogshit.
Madam Web?
Yep.
Was directed by a woman?
Yeah. S.J. Clarkson.
Maybe we shouldn't do more female-directed films.
That's the only bad one, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. Some people would call Saltburn bad, but I enjoyed it.
Well, it's not on Madame Web level. I didn't mind
God,
Saltburn.
no.
I didn't love it, but you know, Madame Web was just
that was next level turd
fire. Okay, another question for you.
I didn't realise this was
Can
going to be a
you-
quiz. This is a Sunday afternoon and you're making me flex my grey matter.
It's quiz time. It's quiz time.
Okay.
Movies with 13 in the title. We've covered one of them.
Have we?
Yeah. Last season.
Last season?
Yeah.
What was the theme? Oh, Dreams. Oh, the 13th floor.
Correct. I know it's throwing you slightly because some of them weren't actually about dreams.
Yeah.
You've got 13 Days. We haven't covered that. But
No,
that's
I was going to
movie
say, don't confuse me.
13 in total. Can you name any others?
Just films in general?
Yeah.
Ocean's 13?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. I hadn't thought of that.
Isn't there just another film called, oh wait, 13, no. No, I don't know.
13 Ghosts.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, I should have got that.
13 Fridays. Friday the 13th.
13 Fridays.
Yep. There's a few movies called Friday the 13th, I think.
Oh, there's loads.
Mm.
Millions of them.
13 Lives. Is that the cave one?
Oh yeah, I think it might be.
Right, okay, yeah. And that's all I could think of.
Cool. Should we talk about 13?
Let's talk about 13. Come on.
So this was a first time viewing for you, was it?
First time viewing for me. I'd never heard
Yeah.
of it until you programmed in for this season.
Seriously? That shocks me because I feel like it was. I think it did reasonably well the year it came out.
Okay. Well,
Obviously,
I would have
I
been
mean,
about 19 when it came out. I don't think I was going to the cinema a lot then.
no, and I think probably coming of age movies about teenage girls were probably not at the top of your list of things you want to go see.
No, but I was quite poor then, I think, and I couldn't afford to go anywhere or do anything. So that was probably another reason.
Let me break out my tiny violin. Sorry.
Yeah, right, yeah, I can see it there. Yeah.
So you'd never seen it before, but you'd never even heard of it either.
Mm.
Had you heard of Catherine Hardwicke?
Nope.
Really?
Mhm.
Okay. I remember when this movie came out, and I didn't go to see it at the cinema, but I did see it on home video release. God, I sound old. Home video. And I loved
HVR,
it.
yeah. Okay, yeah.
I absolutely loved it. Enough that I was kind of like, oh, who's this Catherine Hardwicke lady? You know, because even 21 years ago, there were not nearly as many opportunities for women to direct as there are now.
Yeah.
And there still aren't enough now.
Yeah, it's still great, yeah.
But back then it was a lot rarer.
Mm.
And I just remember thinking, oh, I'm going to keep an eye out for what she does next.
Mm.
And then Lords of Dogtown came out a couple years later. Loved that as well. And I was like, she might be one of my new favourite directors. And then she made Twilight.
Okay.
And all my dreams were dashed.
Don't think Twilight is that bad. The first Twilight.
Is that your controversial opinion?
That's my opinion. Whether it's controversial or not, I don't know.
It's
but
controversial in this office, yeah.
I think it's fine. I think it's fine for a kids movie. It's fine. It's not for me. Like, and now I've seen one of the sequels, and that's possibly the worst movie I've ever seen. Nothing happened in it. They slept in a bed on a beach for like 2 hours or whatever.
Wow.
It was horrible.
Riveting stuff.
So I get why, people sort of shit on that franchise, because I've seen one of them and that was shit. So I expect the rest of the sequels are bad. But that first movie I didn't think was that bad. I was one of those that, I've got to sit down and watch this, have I? Not interested. And saw it was like, that was all right.
That shocks me.
If I was a 7-year-old, I'd have probably quite liked it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It was fine. It was fine.
I was shocked at how bad it was. It does seem to have had a bit of a resurgence in popularity lately.
Okay.
I don't know why. I think people are sort of recognizing that it was kind of bad and a bit cheesy, and they're embracing it for that, which is, that's fine. That's good. You.
I hadn't heard of Hardwicke until probably we watched The Laws of Dogtown a year or two ago, perhaps.
Yeah.
And that would have been the first Catherine Hardwicke movie that I'd seen, and the first time I'd ever heard of her. And that was about skateboarding.
Yes. Did you enjoy that one?
You can
say no.
I don't think I disliked it. I think I thought it was fine.
Okay.
It was okay. But I would, I'll give it another go, I guess. But 13 would have been her first movie as a writer director, but she was a production designer for God's like 15 years or something prior to that.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of. Have you looked up her credits on IMDb?
Not prior to directing, I haven't, no.
Some of them might be of interest to you.
Oh, really?
Let's have a little look at what I wrote down.
I knew she was a production director because I read that she was dating, I think, Nikki Reed's dad.
Right. Okay.
When she was a production director, and then obviously she met Nikki Reed, got talking, and they came up with the idea together about putting some of her experiences onto film. Yeah.
Well, I'd heard that they were family friends. I didn't realise just quite how close they were, but apparently like Nikki Reed was spending hours getting ready for school, and Hardwicke was like, what's going on? And this image thing seems a bit, could be a bit dangerous or whatever. And she said to Reed, well, what do you want to do? Like, let's work on something together where maybe you can take yourself out of yourself for a bit. You're not going to have to worry about image and all that stuff quite so much. And she's like, what do you want to do? And Reed goes, I want to be an actor. And you're thinking, oh yeah, because like image is not important for actors at all, is it? So I think she was a bit taken by that. But yeah, they decided to work on this together, which became her first directing credit.
I know I say this often with patronising intent, but that is a cool story.
Who are you patronising, me or Catherine?
I'm not patronising anybody. It is a genuine cool story.
Yeah. But yeah, between the years of 1986 and 2002, production designer. Have you heard of a movie called Brain Dead?
Wait, what?
1990. Have you heard of a movie called Brain Dead?
Are you serious? The Peter Jackson Brain Dead?
If that's 1990, then yes.
Isn't
that called something else?
Well, it's called Dead Alive in America.
Right.
So maybe it's not the same one. There is another movie called Brain Dead.
Is that from 1990?
I don't know.
She's a production designer movie called Brain Dead.
Okay.
Right, this is what I was working up to anyway. You heard of a movie called Freaked?
She did production design on Freaked.
Yeah.
Okay, she's my new favourite person again.
Yeah, I thought she might be. One for the boys, Tombstone. One for the boys.
One for the boys.
One for the boys. Gun Time, Slinky Gun Time. That's the one where Michael Biehn does his spinny gun time, and it's fucking glorious. I love it. I watch that scene all of the time. And then Val Kilmer's Doc Holliday. He's like bang, bang, pew. And it's one for the boys. But then she did one for the girls.
Guess
what the next one might be?
What year?
Oh, I don't know what year, actually. I want to say 93. It's a film you talk about a lot. It's a film you've made me watch in the past, and it's a film that you're threatening to put on one of our lineups, and I'm not going to say which one.
93?
I think it's 93.
One for the girls?
One for the girls.
Oh, I don't know. I'm threatening to put it in the lineup.
Yeah.
Give me a clue. That could be anything.
A clue. All right. Maybe Ice-T is a kangaroo human.
Oh, Tank Girl. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it was 95.
Was it 95? That makes sense. But yeah, when I saw Freaked and Tank Girl in her lineup, I thought, well, I've got to mention this.
Yeah. Holy shit.
And then
that film's terrible, and I love it.
I know you do. It's terrible, and I've seen it. The next movie she did, I didn't even know this film was by Richard Linklater. But it's called The Newton Boys. Another one for the boys. One for the girls, one for the boys.
Matthew McConaughey was in it. I remember that much.
I remember the poster, and they've just got like waistcoats on or whatever. With
there's like they're just stood up, and it's very black and white. And then there's like some red writing, maybe.
Yeah, The Newton Boys. Yeah,
for the boys.
One for the boys. I haven't seen that, and it's one of those. Really, that's Richard Linklater, is it?
Yeah, it feels pretty out of left field for him. But then so does School of Rock.
Yeah, Schneebly.
I always forget that's him as well.
Ned Schneebly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forget that too. And then she did another one for the boys after that. David O. Russell movie.
Oh no.
Yeah, I know, unfortunately. But Three Kings. Three Kings.
Okay.
So worked with some really talented directors and
David O. Russell.
Yeah. who seems like a cock. So I don't care. I don't care about saying that he's not talented. But
Is he talented? I've seen Amsterdam.
Amsterdam. Oh Lord, that was awful. Yeah. Has he made a good movie?
Three Kings was pretty good, I seem to remember.
I didn't make it through that movie, I don't think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You do have a very short attention span.
What?
Yeah, precisely. What were we talking about?
Yeah, I don't...
Catherine Hardwicke.
I think Amsterdam might be the only David O. Russell movie I've actually seen, in fairness.
Wow.
All the way through.
Okay.
Yeah, anyway. I don't care about that. It's not a filmmaker I'm desperate to catch up on his catalogue of.
He's made some good movies, but I also don't want to pay him a compliment.
No, if we watch his movies, let's steal them from the internet.
Okay. So straight from production designing to directing.
Yeah, but like for a long time, like
yeah,
over a decade in the industry, you should probably just pick up loads of stuff, especially production design, you know, building all of the sets and all of the look of the film. And you're talking, you must be quite close with the director, the art director, the cinematographer, the camera, you know, you're learning everything. It's probably a really good place to be if your ambition is to eventually make your own movies.
Yeah.
And just learning, I guess, from a plethora of people and of different talents and stuff.
Yeah, different working styles. That would be really important, I imagine.
Yeah.
So what do you think of her as a director then, based on the few movies that you've seen of hers?
I would say Lords of Dogtown I don't really remember very much. I remember what it's about, but the directing is not something that I thought about or has left any lasting impression on me. But having said that, I haven't watched it in the way that I would watch a movie for the podcast. I haven't thought about it too much. I think I didn't love the directing style of 13.
Yeah, I was about... do you want my answer?
Yeah.
Please
put me on misery.
I think she's made some really good films. I do. But I wouldn't call her a director that has any sort of specific flair or style to speak of. I've seen some of her films that are terrible. She did one called Plush, which was just this awful kind of erotic thriller throwback with Emily Browning in, and it was just not good.
Okay.
So I think she's probably at this point definitely had more misses than hits for me. And I feel like 13 is a really difficult movie to appraise in terms of directing style, because there are some choices here, particularly with the editing.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
Yeah, and not just the editing, the filming style as well, but it's so dated. It's so squarely of its time that I feel like it's a really difficult one to look at and say this is a good director or this is a bad director, because it's so stylistic.
It was a very short production period. They shot it over 28 days.
Oh wow.
And I'm guessing it was a very small team. The budget was 2 million, which I'm surprised it was that high. I'll be honest with you. I thought it would be less than that. And I don't mean this as a slight on a film, but it looks like it's less to me. It looks like you could probably make this for... But it's, you know, it is 2003 also. Like, you're probably shooting on film, right? I don't know.
It looks like it's shot on film.
Perhaps digital, I don't know. But yeah, that seems like a lot to me.
I suppose, yeah.
I think given the style, like you said, it's very of its time. There's a lot of very quick cuts. There's a lot of handheld work. There's a lot of fast zooms. And I was expecting at any minute, I wouldn't have been surprised if it all of a sudden went black and white and there was a fast zoom into Ashton Kutcher saying, isn't it great we punched Jimmy Carr in the face or whatever. I don't know what he did in that show. Punked, wasn't it? Yeah, it felt very MTV. It felt very flared jean, belly ring kind of...
I know exactly what you mean. And I wrote a bunch of the same things down, like the place in my notes where I was talking about the style of it is just shock zooms, shaky cam, quick cuts, handheld. So like absolutely all the same things that you picked out. Yeah,
it was very specific, very it's very dated, like you say, watching it. And I found it
squarely as early 2000s, I think.
I found it kind of tricky to watch because I couldn't settle on a shot, or really I found it difficult to absorb much information, because it was so sort of all over the place. Frenetic is maybe a word, I don't know. It was hard, and I'm sure that was by design. You know, it's trying to put you in the perspective of teenage girls that are growing into womanhood, and it's confusing and
it's
things are
chaotic
changing.
Time.
Chaos. Yeah. So I'm sure that was a very specific choice. I had trouble grasping much because of that.
Yeah,
all
I
could
get
think
that.
of is, there's another cut, and at one point I was counting
Were
how long
you?
it was between cuts, and I think only for a few minutes, but like the longest I got up to was 3 seconds, and I was thinking,
did Edgar Wright make this?
I was thinking Bay, yeah, but there are no drone shots, so.
Do you know what it reminds me of? Do you remember Reality Bites, when Winona Ryder's character is filming her friends because she wants to turn it into some sort of documentary?
Yeah.
And then Ben Stiller's company gets hold of the footage and MTV's it.
Yeah.
It really reminded me of that.
That's a great shout. Yeah. I didn't love that style, I'll be honest with you, but I understand why it's there, and I suppose it does work, really.
Yeah.
Like, considering that I was confused and things were moving on before I had fully absorbed what was happening.
Yeah.
It kind of did what it was aiming for, I think. So I do think it was kind of successful. It's just not a style that I particularly enjoyed watching.
Yeah, not as pleasant to watch.
Yeah. But I will say that we watched it together, and then I watched it again with the director's commentary. So
did you?
I had to, because
you kept that quiet.
I did. It was a secret. And I've let it go now. I've told you the secret. The cat is out of the hat.
Is that the saying? I thought it was the cat is out of the bag.
Oh, fuck me. It's the cats. 7 cats in bags.
7 cats in bags. Is Kittens, that a Dr. Seuss book that I've never read?
Yeah, probably. Kittens, cats, sacks and wives. That's how many were at St Ives.
So director's commentary, was that particularly enlightening?
My brain was just in Die Hard with a Vengeance for a moment now.
Come back to the present.
Was it particularly enlightening? It was good to see the film again, mostly, I would say, to try and absorb what was happening, what was going on. I think she did sort of provide a bit more context with how her and Nikki Reed had met and got to know each other and stuff like that. So it did give some more kind of information. But I don't know. I feel like I don't know how much you would get out of it. It was. Okay. I think it was more like I found it helpful to understand what was going on.
Okay, having never been a teenage girl.
Yeah,
I've got that advantage over you.
Well, there's that.
And when I say advantage, I mean in terms of talking about this film, not in life.
Of course. I mean, I would say, like, there are some films that you don't need to have that perspective. You know, coming of age movies about teenage girls, something like Booksmart, I don't think you need to have gone through puberty as a teenage girl to fully get that movie. I think the things that they go through are pretty universal, perhaps. I just think it helps, maybe for me with this movie, that if you do have that experience, probably might get something a bit more out of this film.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's interesting because we were watching an interview with Nikki Reed, Catherine Hardwicke and Evan Rachel Wood that happened a few years ago. It was sort of like a 13 reunion of sorts for Refinery 29. And Evan Rachel Wood, who is a mother herself now, did kind of make a point of saying, I think boys should watch films like this as well. I think they should be, because she was talking about in reference to whether her son was going to see it at any point. And she was like, yeah, I think boys should watch more female-centered movies because it might give them a better understanding, which I thought was an interesting point.
Yeah.
Because I absolutely get why this wouldn't appeal to men or boys, because it is so specific to the female teenage experience. I wouldn't say all of the themes are universal, though, because this movie does actually deal with some pretty heavy topics. And I think I'd kind of forgotten that a little bit because I hadn't seen this in quite a few years.
Yeah. I think it dealt with some real life heavier subject matter than I thought that it was going to.
Okay.
And I was quite surprised.
Did you think it was going to be more of like a book smart sort of body, maybe comedic? I don't know. It is an 18 certificate though, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah, I think so.
I didn't pay any attention to that, but
it's quite controversial, I think, to show people of a certain age doing certain things. So I think that dictates the certification rather than, like, if it was adults doing that sort of stuff, it'd be a 15, I reckon.
Yeah, I think I don't know if I was expecting it to be as funny as Booksmart, because that's the funniest movie ever made.
I don't know if I agree with that, but it is great.
It's fucking hilarious and utterly rewatchable.
Yeah.
I probably was expecting a bit more comedy, yeah, probably. But maybe that's just, growing up in the 80s and the 90s with John Hughes, and then later, unfortunately, films like American Pie and, Road Trip. And I haven't watched Road Trip in forever. I wonder if that holds up. Probably not.
I'll only watch it if we can double it with Euro Trip.
I'll take that deal.
Okay.
I don't own either of them though, so
I think I might own Euro Trip. I'm so sorry.
Of course you do.
Exposing myself as some sort of idiot.
What other things in this do you think? What would you relate to in this film? What's the part? Is it the shoplifting? Have you ever shoplifted?
Yes.
I'll cut that out if you like.
No, I did a little bit.
And why was that? Was that to portray yourself in a certain way with friends, or did you just want the thing, or was it a risk thing? Like, what was going on?
I think all of the above.
Okay.
Definitely peer pressure played a big part of my formative years, and I did a lot of things that I wouldn't have done had it been my idea.
Didn't we all?
Yeah.
We all did stupid shit when we were kids.
I'm sure. Yeah. I don't know. I don't necessarily find this movie super relatable in terms of themes, because there's a bunch of stuff like addiction, absentee parents, like neglect, eating disorders, self-harm. Like, there's a ton of really, really heavy stuff in here. And I don't necessarily relate to most of that. I certainly relate to the image issues part. I think that's something that potentially never left me. But I just think the overall experience of what a lot of girls go through at that time, and that internal struggle, and just barely recognizing yourself, everything's changing, you're expected to act different and start to grow up but not be too grown up. It's a really confusing time, and I think it's probably around that age that peer pressure does really start to kick in.
About 13.
Yeah, I would say so. For me, anyway.
Okay.
It's such a formative age, because 12 is very much a child, and obviously 13 is a child, but it's got the word teen in it. So it's like you're expected to feel a little bit older and therefore act a little bit older.
If anything, I went the other way.
Did you?
I would say I was probably quite mature for a 10, 11, 12-year-old. And then my teenage years. Like,
did you wear a monocle?
Have I showed you pictures? Why a monocle? What's...
Just mature for your age. Okay. I'm picturing you in a top hat with a monocle.
I don't know. I was probably a little shit, to be honest. But yeah, I definitely was a bit of a tearaway, I think, when I was sort of 12, 13, getting into a bit of trouble.
I feel like you probably relate to some of this more than I do then.
Perhaps. I mean, there were certain things that I went through in my childhood where I was kind of left to my own devices in a way. Like, no, if you're listening, Mum, it's fine. Don't worry. It's my childhood. I'm fine.
Not a criticism.
Not a criticism at all. It's just the way things worked out.
Yeah.
And I think, and as a result of that, I did some things that were just stupid.
Yeah.
Like shoplifting and drinking too much with your mates. And
at 13?
Yeah.
See, I don't think I was drinking at 13.
That was when it started.
I definitely smoked.
That was the inception of it. Yeah, same. But it was, you're right, it was a period, I've just suddenly gone from, I would like a He-Man teddy bear or whatever, to, I want to create a Cronenberg now, please. Yeah. And it's a very quick sort of change.
Which is bound to be confusing and disorienting for anybody, especially when your body's changing. People's response to you is changing. People start to treat you a little bit differently.
Yeah.
They might not talk down to you as much as they would when you were younger. And it's such a volatile time. And if you add into the mix some of the stuff that the characters in this are going through, it's just, hell as a teenage girl.
Yeah, it's the main character, Evan Rachel Wood.
Tracy.
Tracy is her name. And, I've got that thing. I just can't recognise faces. It only just clicked with me that she is Dolores in Westworld.
Yeah.
Like about 3 days ago.
Oh, right.
No idea. And I fucking love Westworld.
Yeah.
And it's a great show. And I had no idea. So that was surprising. But yeah, so Tracy, her mum is played by Holly Hunter.
Yeah, they're both great here.
They're brilliant. I love Holly Hunter. I think most recently we saw her in The Big Sick, or we watched that recently rather. And that's probably the last thing I can remember seeing her in.
Yeah, she's funny in that.
Yeah, she's great. And she's great here and just playing that role really well. And she's clearly got a past and she's suffered her own things with addiction. She's addicted to Jeremy Sisto for some reason, who's in Suicide Kings.
And Clueless. And May.
And Clueless and May, yeah. Clueless is another coming-of-age movie.
Yeah.
Why is it not in this lineup? Oh, it might be. We haven't announced the last two. Maybe it is.
Look at you just giving the game away. I mean, no, it's not going to be a fun time in my lineup, is it? I'm going to make you watch punishing movies.
Yeah, you're right. But yeah, she's. I think Jeremy Sisto was actually really good in this, considering he doesn't get much to say.
I like the thing he did with the chicken. Devoid of context.
Yeah, I thought he was good actually. He didn't get much to say, but he was just a nice kind of presence there, and kind of goes against what you think that relationship's going to be.
Yeah,
they've got their own problems with addiction, and it's not clear whether or not they fall off the wagon in the movie, but I think they do. I think Sisto definitely does.
It's implied.
Yeah, it's implied.
Yeah,
but I kind of thought, oh, okay, there's going to be a lot more turmoil there, and they don't really depict it. It's kind of happening in the background, but I guess that's a sense of Holly Hunter's character trying to shield Tracy from whatever she's going through as well to a degree. Yeah, it's all from a perspective of Tracy, isn't it?
That, and I think, Tracy's front and centre, so it's her story rather than her mum's. But also, I think because it's from Tracy's perspective, like, we're not seeing that in detail because she's perhaps got blinkers on. Because I think when you're that age, or maybe a little bit younger, like your parents are kind of like,
they're gross. Just
no,
weird and
opposite, like almost hero worship.
Oh.
From my perspective, like, I don't know.
Sorry, Mum, I wasn't talking about you.
But then I think when you get a bit older, you see them for what they are, and that's just humans who make mistakes and definitely don't know it all and have it all together.
Yeah.
But I think that because Tracy's going through so much, she's become a little bit self-involved, which is not a criticism.
I think that's just a teenage thing.
Yeah.
I think teenagers are just self-indulgent little fucks.
Yeah.
I think that's just how it is. That's why we're not having children.
Oh, that specifically is why, is
that's
it?
That's one of a plethora of reasons why we are not having children.
Yeah, you don't have to you keep saying it as though you're trying to impress that upon me.
I'm not. It was your idea.
I definitely don't want kids.
I was all for it, and you were like, "Nah, I don't want." That's not true either.
Don't. You're gonna make me sound awful. That's so not true.
No, kids are disgusting. That's all, and we can move on.
This film definitely doesn't endear me to the notion of having children one bit.
Way too much responsibility.
But also,
you can't do crack anymore. Well, you can, but you can't hide it. You can't hide it from them.
Well, you can't because you can't afford it. All your money goes towards the kids.
Oh yeah.
As evidenced here, because Mum's certainly not well off.
No.
See, I brought it back.
Well done. Very good. Professional.
Sort of. Yeah, I don't know who would invite this after seeing this film. I was rotten to my mum. I was wretched. I treated her horribly. And I regret it deeply now. I think it was maybe something that had to happen in our relationship for us to sort of look back and go, fucking hell, we've come a long way. But I get the impression that's not uncommon, particularly among teenage girls, less so among boys maybe.
I think you're right. I think it is really common. And I think it's part of the journey in many ways. You know, you mentioned earlier about you going through phases of how you see your parents. And I mean, yeah, when I was a kid, my parents were God. And then you realise slowly that they're not. And part of that is maybe a bit of resentment. Like, why aren't you?
Yeah.
You know, why aren't you doing this thing that this other person's doing or whatever?
All these terrible things are happening to me. Why can't you protect me from that?
Yeah, exactly.
In this case, I think.
Yeah, and there is no protecting from life. So there is an inevitable part of the journey, I think, where you're going to sort of lash out a little bit. And you've got all of this stuff going on. It's like you say, it's a confusing time. And I think most parents are probably like, yeah, it's fine. I know you love me, really.
Yeah.
I know you're being a massive twat. But I probably did this too.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it is kind of a rite of passage just to be beastly to your parents at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I imagine they recognise that they went through the same thing or something similar, and
they know you don't mean it. They must know that. Yeah.
I felt like I meant it at the time.
Yeah.
But I obviously didn't hate my mum.
No.
I just told her I did. Isn't that awful?
Yes, it must be super difficult to hear.
Yeah.
But like you say, like I said, I think there must be some detachment there because you just realise that, I don't know, I feel like if that was me, I'd be like, well, I'm not having a conversation with a human being here. I'm having a conversation with a teenager. So we can really disregard whatever they're saying, can't we?
Yes, they are the authority on nothing.
Yeah, precisely. Except if you're Nikki Reed and you can write a fucking movie.
Which is crazy, and we'll get to that.
See how I brought that back?
Yeah. Consummate professional.
We're getting better at this.
Yeah, I do relate to Tracy in a lot of ways. I was very angsty without necessarily knowing why. I also wrote poetry.
Did you?
Yes.
Are you going to read any out for us now?
Thankfully, I don't own very much of it anymore. There is some in this house, though. I'll say that.
Right.
But yeah, I think getting back to that, let's talk about Nikki Reed a bit more, because we've talked about Catherine Hardwicke, we've talked about Evan Rachel Wood briefly, but we haven't really touched on Nikki Reed, and it's kind of her movie.
I'd say this movie is about Tracy. It starts with Tracy, it ends with Tracy. It's her story. But I would say the biggest presence in this movie is definitely Evie, who's a massive influence on Tracy.
The impression that I've got in interviews and articles is that obviously this was based, however loosely, on Nikki Reed's actual experiences, because she was 13 when she wrote the script with Catherine Hardwicke. But was she sort of writing herself as Tracy? I feel obviously she's playing Evie, but I feel like perhaps her experiences were closer to Tracy.
Maybe, perhaps. I don't think that was elaborated on in the commentary or anything that I consumed.
Okay.
I just know that it was kind of loosely based on her experiences, but I don't know I don't know what's specific and what's not.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, we meet Tracy at the beginning.
She's the popular girl.
Tracy's not the popular girl.
No, Evie is the popular girl.
Yeah.
Sorry. Please continue. We're getting
just
better at this.
Interject with fake news and then tell me I can carry on. Yeah, and then she meets Evie Zamora. Well, she's sort of aware of her from afar, but she engineers a friendship with her based on shoplifting. But something that I found quite interesting is Nikki Reed was talking about her actual experiences in an interview that I saw, and saying that she exaggerated a lot of what was in the script, because some things she didn't do, she just told people that she'd done to portray a specific image, I guess. And that made me think of that first scene when they're in the shop and Tracy's desperate to hang out with Evie and her friend, who are shoplifting really, really inconsequential items like lighters, really cheap stuff. But Tracy's the one that takes it too far, because she steals a wallet out of somebody's purse with like a considerable amount of money in it. So I think prior to this viewing, I sort of had always seen Evie as the negative influence, but actually Tracy has a serious amount of toxicity herself, whether that's, you know, born of peer pressure or I'm sure it's all insecurity.
Yeah, it's like Evie was just sort of the kindling, and she was able to. She obviously was trying to impress the popular girls by stealing, but yeah, you're right. She does end up taking it a bit further, doesn't she? Like not just with that, but also with the drugs and the alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
She ends up drinking blue stuff, and I don't even know what it is from a man on the street.
And getting
voodoo juice,
piercings.
Yeah.
This is the second movie this season with a home navel piercing. Isn't that weird?
I can't think of the other one.
Ginger snaps.
Okay.
When they're trying the silver.
Right. Did you say nasal piercing?
Navel.
Oh, navel is somewhere else. It's not your nose.
It's your belly button.
Navel. Right. That's what that means. I thought it was this kind of boat.
Dan. So yeah, I don't think Nikki Reed had done any acting prior to this, had she?
No, I don't think so.
I feel like this is her first credit.
Yeah, only 13. It's probably likely, isn't it? She went on to be in Twilight's, I guess.
She was in the Twilight movies, yes. And she's now married to Boone from Lost,
Boone.
I believe.
Don't get in that plane, Boone. Don't do it. Don't listen to Locke.
Just disregard everything John Locke says.
You can't trust him.
But yeah, she's gone on to have a pretty decent career of her own.
Mm.
I think she did want to get into acting before this, but obviously it came about because of her proximity to Catherine Hardwicke.
Oh, Nepo baby.
Well, of a fashion. But she's great.
Yeah.
She's really good in this, I think.
I don't necessarily mean that as a pejorative term.
Okay.
I know it's fashionable to have a go at someone that is a Nepo baby, but I would counter that by saying if they're a twat, then we can say you're a twat, but not just because you've got a famous parent. Because
some Nepo babies are preferable. Jack Quaid over Dennis Quaid any day.
Oh, good Lord, right? It's like it's another go at it. You got some genetics, right?
Yeah.
Let's have another go. And then you're right. You come up with Jack Quaid.
2.0, yeah. But yeah, she is really good. I believe she was in Lords of Dogtown as well. So like first few credits were definitely fueled by her knowing Catherine Hardwicke. But I think she kind of came into her own, and she's had a really decent career. She was only 14 in this, and I think Evan Rachel Wood was 15.
Oh, okay.
So they were very young.
Yeah, it was a super quick turnaround, I think, with Reed and Hardwicke writing it and then putting it into production, getting it shot. Yeah, because under pressure, you change a lot within a few months and years and stuff. So they wanted to get it in the bag. But
right.
So 14 and 15 they were. Wow. Okay.
I believe so. Yeah. And honestly, the emotional depth that I think they both bring to it is super impressive. I was not that emotionally intelligent when I was 15. Not even close.
Not that emotionally intelligent now.
It's arguable.
Did you know that Evan Rachel Wood played Madonna in the Al Yankovic story?
Oh yeah, of course she did.
I'm just looking at my notes.
Weird.
There, yeah.
That was a fun movie.
That was way better than it had any business being.
Yeah.
That was really funny. Yeah.
Daniel Radcliffe supremacy. I need him and Elijah Wood in a movie playing siblings.
Yeah. I was just thinking, doesn't that already exist? But I don't think it does it?
No.
I think we should make it exist.
Some sort of stoner comedy with them as siblings.
Yeah.
I think something else this film does really, really well is to kind of showcase how powerful a feeling being embarrassed and ostracized at that age is. I don't know if this is just my perspective. I'm certainly not trying to speak for anybody else, and maybe this has more to do with the autistic element of my personality rather than just the female one, but I feel like there was nothing worse than being embarrassed in front of your peers when I was that age. Obviously informed by the fact that I got bullied quite badly, but yeah, that feeling of embarrassment is visceral. I can almost feel it now. Is Is that unique to a female experience, do you think?
What, being embarrassed?
Yeah, but that being like the worst possible thing, because
like
being embarrassed like leads to ostracization, which leads to loneliness, which leads to,
right,
you know, a bunch of other negative things.
Yeah. No, I was quite nervous, I would say, growing up. I didn't really want to talk in front of people for fear of embarrassment, I guess. But it was definitely more the fear of it happening rather than the embarrassment itself. Because there was one time, it's the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to me. I think about it now and I'm still sort of going red-faced and oh no.
But that's what I mean. It's such a powerful feeling that you can,
you're right.
for you to be able to recall it now.
But I was really young then. That's like the earliest thing of embarrassment that I can ever remember. So
is it the circus thing?
The circus thing.
Maybe we will tell that story on Patreon.
Don't tell him about the circus thing. Told you that in confidence.
I know you too well at this point.
That's the most vivid memory of embarrassment that I have.
Yeah.
And perhaps that experience happening so young is the reason why I was afraid of it happening again.
Almost certainly, yeah. Because it is such a, like, vivid is such a good word. You just use that in relation to the memory, but it's the feeling, I think, more than anything is what's vivid.
You just want to crawl into your own shoe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not fun.
No.
And it's like the worst. I guess it's like, you're right, it's probably the worst thing that can happen.
At that
like
age, yeah.
But even like going into my 20s and my 30s, like, and having to do presentations or having to do a lot of talking in a meeting or whatever, that was scary as well. And like the fear of embarrassment there. You mispronounce a word and people go, it's not pronounced chess hunt. Like, yeah, I know.
Are you speaking from specifics?
No. God, I hate being embarrassed.
See what I mean, though? But I think that's something that this film does perfectly. It just nails that feeling. The whole film is sort of pervaded by this feeling of just cringe, I guess.
Yeah. That anxiety and that cringe. And what are you sewing on your trousers now? Fur?
How did you feel about Holly Hunter's parenting?
I liked her as a parent.
Did you?
I did. I think it must be hard. Like, it must be tricky to know what to do for the best. Do you helicopter parent? Do you overprotect? Do you underprotect? And I suppose the reality is somewhere between the two is probably better. But at the same time, no parents are ever perfect. So you probably, even the best ones, you're going to get a bit of both from time to time. I thought that she was pretty decent. You know, she was open. She had her own problems to deal with. She was definitely trying to shield Tracy from a lot and protect her. So she was doing her bit.
I really like the shift that happens, actually, because I see the character as being like super free spirited.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, she's talking about AA. She's having an illicit cigarette out the front, but she's concealing that from the kids. Yeah. And then she sees Tracy and tucks her underwear back into her pants right at the start. And I think all these things are a really, really interesting way of telling you about her character and where she's at. And the fact that as the film goes on, these things like illicit cigarettes become nothing because Tracy's behavior kind of goes one step further in everything.
Yeah. Well, she's seeing her child start to grow into a young woman. So that's kind of feels like the start of that journey. She does take a few moments in the film where she's like sort of looking at Tracy and going, oh fuck, she grew up, you know. So it is that transitional period as well where she's probably been like a very protective of her and looking after her and stuff, but now is getting to the point like, should I just let her do her own thing? But what if I do that too much? And she also inherits these addictions, and oh fuck, she is starting to do that. Yeah, it's tricky, but I like it because it feels realistic. And I guess it probably is a lot based on actual stuff that happened, as you alluded to earlier, but
It's funny because I remember when I watched this when I was younger, because I think I would have been like 21 when I first saw this movie.
21.
I think when I was younger, I maybe thought that Holly Hunter's character was sort of a bit irresponsible, I guess, like for having other addicts around her children and having this sort of open house for people to come in and out of, and, you know, being a bit of a scatterbrain and abandoning her kid when she was supposed to do something with her because she had to go to an AA meeting. There were all these things, but I think that viewing it now as somebody twice that age, I view it very differently.
Yeah.
They're just allowing that character to have a rich inner life like everybody does, you know?
Yeah. It's just a realistic character. So I think she seems like a decent person that's trying her best, I think.
Yeah.
And that's like all anyone can do.
That's it. I think that's kind of what I was trying to get at.
And like, no parents are perfect. No people are perfect. And it's interesting that when you were younger, you viewed her as maybe could be a bit more responsible.
Yeah. You'd think it'd be the other way around.
I don't know. I think that makes sense to me, that way around.
Because like even when you're 21, I don't know, I didn't view myself as an adult. I felt very arrested, emotionally speaking.
How old were your parents when they had you?
Oh, quite late.
Okay.
I think Dad was 40.
Okay.
Mum was very close to 40.
So sort of pretty old parents then.
Yeah.
Compared to
back then, definitely.
Back then, yeah. I mean, my mum had me when she was really young, like 18 or whatever. So for me, there's 2 decades between me and my mum. There's 4 decades between you and your mum, or you and your parents. Like and that's a big difference.
That's a whole generational gap.
I think back to when I was sort of 28 even, and my mum had a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
When I was 28.
Yeah.
I don't know how, like a 10-year-old?
Yeah.
That's almost an adult, man. I can't imagine, like, if I'd have had a kid when I was my mum's age, we'd have a 22-year-old knocking around the house now. An actual proper adult.
Well, we wouldn't, because they'd have moved out. They'd have been made to.
Get the fuck out. Yeah. And I guess there's probably a similar age gap between Tracy and Holly Hunter, right?
I guess so.
It seems like she was probably quite a young parent. The dad's not really around. He's there,
very much absentee parent, and not unconcerned with what she's doing, but very happy to stay ignorant of it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm working and I'm doing it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. It's convenient though, isn't it, that you have to be away? Yeah.
I think it is interesting though, because particularly when you factor in Evie's character as well, you sort of see some of the characteristics that they've learned from the older people in their lives.
Yeah.
Especially like, oh God, what was her name? Evie's, I don't even know who she was, because she refers to her as her caregiver or guardian. That's the word. She refers to her as her aunt at one point, and again as her cousin. So we have no idea who this woman is to Evie. And I find that quite interesting that that's left vague.
Yeah. You don't really know what's going on with Evie, do you?
No.
100%.
No. You sort of granted these little windows into her life, but I don't know, not very much. We're not given very much. But you can see that she's sort of learned to be quite self-involved and manipulative.
Yeah, and I gather that's a coping mechanism that she learned at a young age to, I'm guessing she didn't have a present parent or whatever, and needed some things that she wasn't getting, so had to find a way, be creative of getting the things that she needed. I don't know. Yeah. It feels rich, although there's not much given away about it. That's interesting. Her guardian has ear work. What was that about?
I assume she'd had a facelift, because that's where the scars would be.
Okay. So it was a facelift.
Yeah, I assume so.
Okay.
But there's one scene where she's just staring at herself in a mirror. There's another scene where she's talking to Holly Hunter's character, and all she's talking about is her scars and the pain that she's in, and that's her. It seems to be her sole motivation. imagine.
Well, like the way she looks, image, and
Yeah, very, very much
self-involved.
narcissistic and
Yeah.
not got very much time for Evie,
Right.
despite her needing a strong influence in her life at that point.
And with that kind of influence, how else would you expect a human to be?
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean. Just
Yeah.
like these little nuggets that we're allowed
Yeah.
are enough. You can kind of fill in the gaps between what we're given. And that's just smart script, really smart script. And I think it's obvious. Nikki Reed's involvement becomes obvious when you consider some of the dialogue as well.
I thought you was going to say because of the Avril Lavigne soundtrack.
I'm not a fan of this soundtrack, I have to say. It's another thing that dates it terribly.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
It's not great.
But the dialogue, I don't know, felt quite real to me.
Yeah.
And I think that's in large part because she, was actually 13. Who better to ask?
Yeah, it definitely feels authentic. It sort of goes without saying, really. I can't imagine writing a movie about 13-year-olds and not having a 13-year-old to advise me or like do a punch up on a script or whatever. Like, I
feel like if this movie came out now, it'd just be a couple of 13-year-olds talking about skibbity toilet or I don't know. Just honestly, slang with Gen Alpha is
what's Gen
impenetrable.
Alpha? I don't even know what Gen Alpha is. Is that another one?
It's the one down from Gen Z.
Is Z not the new one now?
No.
Fuck.
We're so old.
Yeah. Or most likely the script is probably written by AI. 13-year-old AI.
Yeah.
But my teenage avatar.
But I think it's sort of easy to watch a film from 2003, kind of critique the stylistic choices that date it, critique the soundtrack that dates it, and maybe some of the slang as well. But at the same time, it's actually quite a cool snapshot of that period in time. It does represent it to the nth degree. Yeah.
I think it's I think this is a good movie. I think it's decent, and I think there's a lot to like about it. It's just some things that are very specific set in that time period.
Yeah.
And it's honestly like a time period that I haven't got the fondest memories of.
Really?
I would say the early to mid 2000s, I think I often say is possibly the worst era of music of all time.
And fashion.
Like Shaggy, It Wasn't Me. Have I got to hear that again? Have I?
And it's in way too recent memory to be nostalgic about yet. Anyway,
you can't get nostalgic about It Wasn't Me.
Shaggy can.
People were listening to like Nickelback and Limp Bizkit and God, who else? Who else was knocking about? Who's No Doubt? Gwen Stefani.
Yeah.
Top Loader. Oh, good Lord.
No.
Yeah.
Top Loader can get in the bin. But aside from the stylistic choices, there are a couple of really bold visual decisions that I think Hardwicke makes that really pay off to me on rewatches.
Like what?
Well, the most glaringly obvious is the color grading throughout the movie.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because obviously we start with it quite
muted,
well, I was going to say quite colourful and bold. Oh, especially when she meets Evie, that's kind of when her world sort of seems to open up a little bit.
Yeah.
And then throughout the movie, as things get more toxic, as their friendship gets more complicated, the seething little jealousies start to come out because they're both basically thinking that the grass is greener. Tracy wants what Evie is, and Evie wants what Tracy's got.
Yeah.
Or what she thinks she has.
Yeah, she wants a secure home and a family, right? Mm-hmm. And yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and she'll manipulate to get it. But I love that when that progression happens, we see it play out as well in the color palette of the movie. Because when Tracy kind of hits rock bottom, and there's the scene where Evie's caregiver guardian kind of exposes Tracy's self-harm scars.
Yeah.
And then she has the breakdown and Holly Hunter's trying to hold her, and it's such an intense scene, but it's almost devoid of colour. Or, well, the only colour is blue, basically.
Yeah. It feels like a Nolan movie or something. Like a James Cameron. It's got the Cameron grading.
This is in the Avatar universe.
It would make Avatar way more interesting if it was.
Yeah. Agreed. But yeah, by the end of the movie, we see that last shot of Tracy kind of waking up, and then you've got the very last scene of her on the playground.
Yeah.
I guess maybe reclaiming her childhood in a way.
I've got a question for you about
Okay.
that. Is merry-go-round, is that one word or is it 3 words?
I write 3 words, but with a dash between each one.
Cool.
Was that the only question you had?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah. And at that point, the colour palette restores.
Yeah.
And everything's as it should be again.
I really like the ending to this film.
Okay.
I like it because you get the reveal where Evie's guardian is exposing all of the secrets that Tracy has from her parents, her mum. And like you sort of hate her for it, but also I'm sort of glad that it happened because they sort of, you get the impression that they sort of reconnect and then they just go to sleep for a day. And you get that final shot. Is that a dream when she's on the merry-go-round?
I've seen a few interpretations.
Okay.
So the first interpretation is that it's just literal. It's her letting out a primal scream because she's sort of free of Evie's influence and is repairing her relationship with her family. You've got the second interpretation, which is it's just a dream, or it's just an interpretation, like a visual example of how Tracy's feeling now. Or the third interpretation, which I hadn't heard of until this week, is that she died. It's a very pessimistic read, but that indicated that she maybe took her own life or overdosed or something.
Okay.
I don't prescribe to that interpretation at all. I don't like it.
I don't like it either. I don't want that to be true.
Yeah.
But also I don't really see it. You know, sometimes you hear something and you go, I can see how you got that. I can't read that. Seems because we hadn't seen any evidence of that sort of behaviour, I guess. It would have felt a bit out of left field maybe.
Yeah.
I just assumed it was a dream.
Did you?
Yeah,
I took it literally. Of course I did, because I'm autistic.
They went to the park.
Well, yeah, I mean, the second time she's at the park is that final scene, and it's kind of, she's there for a different purpose this time.
Yeah, to go on there. Merry-go-round.
Merry dash go dash round.
Yeah. We call it a roundabout, don't we?
Oh, yeah.
But you don't see them in playgrounds anymore. Dangerous.
Health and safety.
I mean, I had a few scrapes on a roundabout.
Yeah, we all did.
Yeah. Just get a bit of a safety flooring in your elbow. Wood chip flooring.
So, I mean, the only other thing that is glaringly obvious in terms of visual clues, I don't know if you noticed it, but there was a poster in the background of a bunch of scenes. I think there was a version of it in Tracy's bedroom as well.
What, in the final scene?
No. In like throughout the movie.
Right.
You see it.
Oh, I see.
Right near the start. And it's basically just a white poster with a woman's eyes. And I think it says like beauty is truth or something. And it's just an advert, but it's a fake ad campaign that they created for the film. And throughout the film, it kind of gets increasingly defaced. And then I think the last one we see, it's just totally vandalized and like really grubby.
Right.
And I thought that was quite a nice visual metaphor for what was going on as well.
Yeah, and subtle as well. And one of those things that if you're paying attention or you do some research could be a bit more rewarding. That's interesting. I think when I saw all of the pictures above her bed, and all I could concentrate on was Josh Hartnett, which is there front and centre, and they had to get his permission.
So you can sympathise with what it's like to be a 13-year-old girl.
Yeah.
And all your focus is on Josh Hartnett.
Yeah. I mean, I liked The Faculty. It was Zeke, wasn't he? He had the little hair thing.
His hair was shocking in The Faculty.
Yeah. I had posters on my wall when I was 13.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
But I was more likely to be trying to make up a dance routine to a Backstreet Boys song than I was inhaling whatever the fuck that was and smacking my friends across the face.
Yeah. Do you know what? That was just the first scene, wasn't it? The opening scene was who you learn is Tracy and Evie punching each other in the face. My first thought was, that's not how you do laughing gas. And then I thought, that's not laughing gas.
Oh, my sweet summer child.
We had very different childhoods.
We did.
But there was a bunch of stuff that they took and drank in this film, and I just had no clue what it was. And I don't know if they did either.
I don't think it mattered.
No.
That was not the focus, but yeah.
I was very invested in that.
So 13.
14.
What did you think?
Do you know what? I quite like this. I wasn't looking forward to it too much. I wasn't thrilled about having to watch it. I'll be honest.
Okay.
But I did get way more out of it than I thought that I would. It's just a really quite realistic kind of take on growing up and coming of age, and there's certain things that everyone can relate to, certain things that not everyone can.
I'm shocked that you enjoyed this. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
I think I said before I put this on, it's going to go one of two ways. I think you're either going to be indifferent or you're going to hate it. So the fact that you somewhat enjoyed it, I'm happy to be wrong.
I think I don't know. Enjoy might be a strong way of putting it. I suppose I did, but because I've had to think about it.
Okay, so appreciate more than enjoy.
Appreciate, yeah, I suppose so. Like it while I was watching it, the editing and the cutting and stuff was sort of spinning me around a little bit. So there's that I would have to take into consideration. But I just really liked the reality, the realness of these characters and everything, the dialogue and like you mentioned, the grading and stuff like that. It was a nicely made movie.
Despite it being a time capsule for 2003.
Yeah. And I did get way more out of it than I thought that I would. So I'm happy that we watched it. It definitely feels like it's a big, good reference point, I think.
Okay.
In terms of coming of age movies. And I suppose that's kind of the point, isn't it? In many ways of programming.
In many ways.
themed seasons. So yeah, are you glad that you picked this one for this season, or would you have put something else in on reflection?
Initially, I was starting to get nervous when it was obviously we were doing this one next, and I was like, why did I pick this? I haven't seen it in a decade. What if it's aged horribly? What if it's terrible? What if my memory is incorrect? But I would say it's a different experience to watch it now as a almost 42-year-old. Some of it does read a bit of like hand-wringing, like it's a bit of a cautionary tale. And it's certainly not subtle. It's quite heavy-handed in that sense.
Do you mean like don't take drugs?
Yeah. This is what happens, kids. This is your brain on drugs.
Interesting. I saw it more of like kids take drugs.
Well, yeah. No, I appreciate that. And that's definitely what I got out of it when I was younger.
Yeah.
But now I think that element does creep in, but it's not necessarily to the film's detriment. It's not necessarily a criticism. I think it's great. I do. I think it suffers some from the time period it was made in.
Yeah.
I also agree that I don't necessarily think you can see the 2 million budget on screen. It does play out and look more like just a straight indie movie. If you told me it was 500 grand, I'd have believed you.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was coming from, I think.
That being said, it's a well-made film. I think it's good, and yeah, I'll probably watch it again going forward.
Cool. And this is the first Kip Pardue movie we've covered.
Oh yeah. Oh God, yeah. I forgot about that scene. You had to bring that up, didn't you?
Yeah. And it's tricky because I really like Kip Pardue. I think he's very good in Driven.
Nobody's good in Driven.
Jimmy Bly, and he does a bit where he has to jump on his foot to pretend that his foot doesn't hurt, so he can drive the fast cars. It's
God,
it's an underrated movie. That was probably the most challenging scene for me to watch, I would say.
Yeah,
it's just like, okay, what's going on here? But again, I suppose realistic.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. Anyway, we sort of were wrapping up talking about the film. We got back into
and then you went on a little tangent all on your own.
We can go back into the movie if you like, or we can wrap it up here.
Let's wrap it up because I want to start thinking about next week.
All right. So what have we got coming up then for the penultimate episode in our coming of age season?
So unsurprisingly, it's another first time watch for you. We're covering Shane Meadows' This Is England.
Oh, an uplifting one then.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Cool.